Yes.
I'll begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. Opposition, proposition, my dearest adjudication, good day. As the member or the leader of opposition, today we are going to oppose the motion that reads, this House believes that psychological maturity, not age, should determine how minors are tried in criminal cases. Ladies and gentlemen, this debate is based on the principle of affirmative action, and this debate, from our side as a delegation, we are looking at factors to consider before the justice system practices the principle of affirmative action. And this affirmative action, ladies and gentlemen, is bringing practice on the minors, and the minors are the minority group in this case. So, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to get into the arguments that we as a delegation will bring forth. First of all, I am going to explain on the point that 1, age comes with access, and 2, the second argument I'm going to bring to the table today as a delegation is that age determines the level of experience. But before I do that, allow me to rebut the case that has been brought upon by our Prime Minister. He said that he's mentioned something to do with proper rehabilitation. But ladies and gentlemen, I want you to know that when you are in a court, right, there's a certain level of pressure that comes with being in a court. So how do you then rehabilitate a child? Because we know that childhood trauma sticks more than adult trauma. And you're going to need more than, and when we sentence them with the same amount of years as an older person, these are probably 10 years, 15 years. Imagine 10 years and 15 years in prison as a child. How are you going to bounce back from that? I want you to think about that. So, allow me to get into my case. Age comes with access. I am going to define this, and I'm going to explain this point in 3 parts. That is social access, political access, and economical access. At first, social access. So a certain age is needed for you to access some things socially. For example, drinking alcohol, getting into certain bars, having some firearms. That means the level of danger you then pose, and that means that the danger that you then pose to the community because of age is real. Because now you are going to go into clubs. Now you know that I can use this firearm in this way, That's removing some level of ignorance. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to put the social access into consideration. Social access also involves contracts like marriage, and this increases the impact of the crimes when you are now in case, because you are going to consider the fact whereby where to live, the type of marriage structure that you are in, whatnot. So when you are being tried as a child, I cannot be tried the same way as an older person who is married, who has many things happening when it comes to when it comes to the social aspect. Let's also look at economical access, financial access. We know that in courts sometimes, when you commit a certain level of crime, you can be charged with what bail. I am a child, I do not work. So how do you expect me to pay that bail when I'm being charged the same thing, when the trial that I'm getting is the same as an older person? So financial access, ladies and gentlemen, even the amount of the quality of lawyer that you're going to get as a child, I do not have anywhere I work, and probably the fact that I have disappointed my parents, they might not be wholeheartedly into the case, considering an adult who will hire the best lawyers that they are. So financial access is very important in this debate, ladies and gentlemen. Let's also look at political access. When it comes to political access, ladies and gentlemen, let's look at elections, for example. When you, at most ages, right, the age that you can come, the demarcation age, right, for crimes and the age that you use to vote are almost the same thing. Those people, that means that when you then vote, you now know the type of, you are the one who is aligned to the party, you are the one who is aligned to the structure of the legislative body that you want to be. As a child, I'm in my projected time. As a child, I did not vote for that. I did not agree to that. So how can you then want to hold me accountable for things that I did not vote for a legislative structure that I did not account for? Ladies and gentlemen, I also want you to know that age determines the level of experience. And as you experience more things, you get more educated. You do not expect that a child who is in Form 1 to know the same laws as a child who is in Grade 1, or a person who is in university to know the same thing. So even in as much as someone is mentally ready, educationally ready, they are not. And also we should also consider the fact that as you grow older, you experience more. You now have different interactions with people. You now know the implications of driving while you're young. So, ladies and gentlemen, with this we say that we oppose this motion. I thank you.
Then that's got a very fine speech finished at exactly 5 minutes and 80 seconds. You can see the position of the man. Let me see 5 minutes.
I start my debate in 3, 2, 1. Now, panel, when my Prime Minister came to the podium, he identified 2 stakeholders in this debate: the minor that has committed the crime and the victim that has been committed the crime towards. Now, when the leader of opposition came up here, yes, she gave some valid points, but what did she do wrong? She was only talking about the culprit, the child who committed the crime, but not once in her speech did she talk about the victim panel. She was supposed to react to both of the stakeholders we had provided, and she did not, showing that she has no way whatsoever to rebut our way of providing the victim as a stakeholder in this debate. Now, moving on to my rebuttals panel. She came up here and she said that in this debate, minors are regarded as the minority. Have we ever acknowledged the fact that in Africa, 25% of people in Africa are adults, therefore showing the fact that 75% of people in Africa are actually not adults? Therefore, since she did not provide where exactly she was talking about, this makes this point invalid. Panel. Moving on to my next rebuttal again, she said that it is not fair for a child to be tried for a period of 10 to 15 years because child trauma is worse than adult trauma. Now, panel, as a 17-year-old person, if I stab a person and if an 18-year-old person stabs a person, what we did the exact same crime. Now, assuming that I am equally as mature as this person is, it shows that we think almost in a very similar way. When we were stabbing, shooting, or killing this person, we were doing it probably for the same motive and with the same reason, because why? We are psychologically much, our psychological maturity is at the same level. Therefore, my age should not determine how much I am. It's for the same factor that people say girls mature faster than boys. I can be 15 and a girl 15, but she is more mature than me, not because of the same age, no, because girls generally mature faster than boys. So therefore, age is not a factor of how fast you mature. Now, panel, moving on to the points of debate. People do not act because of how old they are. No, panel. It is because of how we are raised, how fast we mature. I can have my first beer when I'm 15. You can have your first beer when you're 21. It all goes down to the fact that how were you raised and how mature are you? Not because of age. No. Yes, it is not legal for me to drink a beer when I'm 18, but because of how I was raised and how mature I am already drinking a beer by the age that I am 15. Therefore, age is not really a certain way that we can regard people based off the crime they commit. No, age is just a simple way to separate different kinds of people. Say, no, you are 10 years old, you are 11 years old, because we cannot classify people saying, no, everyone is just the same. No, the world does not run by that. But the fact that a minor in this situation has committed a crime, children will start taking advantage of this, considering that I maybe am a 17-year-old, almost 18, I commit a crime in the fact that I believe that I will not be necessarily taken to prison because I am technically still a minor panel. No, we cannot have a world that lands like that. People simply take advantage in these situations. The minors. Moving on to backlash. Moving on to the next point is my Prime Minister. He came up here and said the effect of backlash. Let me further explain by giving you a simple example. Now, if I maybe steal from someone, the family that I stole from, this links to the part where I said that they did not engage with the stakeholders of the victim. If I now go and steal from them, the family that I stole from feels victimized, because the moment we say, no, this was a child, a 17-year-old, we cannot tell them because they're simply a minor. We cannot give them this 5 years that they deserve. I'm not necessarily implying that stealing deserves 5 years. No, it is simply an example. Therefore, we cannot judge people based off their age. No, if we see that this person is as mature as a normal 21-year-old, this person deserves to be tried. But if we are under the assumption that this person is 17, but we assume that the way they act is not how they're supposed to act, maybe their mind is not really as mature as other people, we understand. That's when we bring in the issue of rehabilitation. And panel, we talked about, my Prime Minister came and talked about the issue of training. When someone is maybe, let's assume this person is 10 years old and accidentally assuming that they stabbed a person We can't simply say that let us not take this person to prison because they are telling you. No, we need to tell this person based on how mature they are. Maybe they just did it as a way of being curious. As a child, as children, we are generally curious. But if we put in the factor that no, this 10-year-old is thinking like someone who is 17 or who is 18, this person deserved to be tried correctly. Because sometimes I may simply steal something and be tried wrongfully of the act that I committed, panel. And moving on to my next rebuttal, she said that because of how people are, she said that age determines accessibility to resources. Actually, it doesn't. And I rebut this out. She said that it goes to the issue of accessing firearms, alcohol, etc. Now, from the moment we got this topic, there was a very key word that she ignored: minors. From the moment that I am able to access alcohol, I have to be 18 years old, panel. And the moment that you're 18 years old, you are already an adult. Therefore, this does not hold any water in this debate. How so? Because that person is not considered as a minor. Therefore, the issue on social accessibility has been rebutted. And moving on to the last point of our sides, they did not. Thank you, panel.
Thank us for his very fine speech. I would you welcome the Deputy Leader of the Opposition.
I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. The argument by the Prime Minister was indeed a truism, since it did not really explain the basis of psychological maturity in terms of crime acquittal, and that is how someone is tried in court of law. They did not explain how the level of psychological maturity would determine how the legal proceedings in the court of law or in trying these minors will take place. Secondly, age and psychological maturity were the factors in the debate, and the Deputy Prime Minister went on to bring gender into the picture. But you also have to remember that he brought the fact that females do mature better than males. But since you say they mature better than males, right, you have to consider that is also determined by age in the first place, considering their parent and valid. Then, even if your psychological maturity, as you said, cannot allow you to take beer at 15, as the example given by the DPM, we also have to consider that point by my leader of opposition that gives access. That this person, this 15-year-old would have gotten access to this alcohol, it wouldn't have been as easy as an older person. So therefore, we mean they pose a bigger threat. The fact that someone went as far as getting that certain particular thing at 15 means they pose a bigger threat. Then, we never said children should not be tried in court of law. And ladies and gentlemen, let us remember this fact. The whole reason for court of law to take place is for the purpose of rehabilitation. So rehabilitation should not be a factor for them to consider that they are above us in their case, since it is obviously what comes after someone is tried in the court of law. I'll move to my arguments. My extension first of all. My leader of opposition talked about political access. Basically, the moment a person gets older, they get more aligned to political issues, and they got more educated on it. As she said, that the person in grade 1 cannot know the same political structure as the person in Form 5. So therefore, this age is also determined, the level of education is also determined by age once again. So therefore, it makes the greater threat to the third party that they kept on emphasizing on the moment someone has greater political access and greater political knowledge through the education that they are getting access to because of their age. Then once again, ladies and gentlemen, psychological maturity is a biogenetic feature. It is also determined by someone's intellect and their ability to tell between right and wrong. So once again, we can't take biogenetic segregation in this case as a factor to consider how someone is going to be tried in the court of law. Since as you said, thinking capacity is different, but at the same time, age also determines someone's thinking capacity due to the education they have access to. They also talked about how they focused on how this case is affecting the victim and the perpetrator, but that was clearly aligned by my leader of opposition when she talked about social access, in the sense that the moment someone has access to a firearm, they become a bigger threat. A threat to who, ladies and gentlemen? The victim, of course. We talked about that they went on to accuse us of not talking about the effects to the victim. We also talked about the effects to a third party, which is the community, ladies and gentlemen. Not necessarily these two parties, the stakeholders involved. There's only another stakeholder in this debate is the community itself, because whatever crime that is committed in the community is going, obviously, directly or indirectly, going to affect the people around them. And we talked about that when we talked about social, political, and economic access. She talked about how my leader of opposition talked about how the level of legal access increases with age, right? Didn't she? So as a result, the moment that is done, the community is not affected more. And she also talked about how they think it's fair for a child to be acquitted to 10 to 15 years in prison. But let's go back to the issue of childhood trauma. Childhood trauma does not only affect the individual who is the perpetrator of the crime in this debate, it also affects the community as well. Because the moment you're going to release this child, they are acquitted at 15 years old, right? As an example. Then they get released at 25. The moment you're releasing this person, their childhood or trauma is going to have an effect on the people around them. Thereby, the third party is also being affected by this fact that you are acquitting this person for such a small crime and for a very long period of time. And we have to understand that these children are still developing human beings, not only biologically but intellectually as well, in the sense that they are developing educationally. So the moment you send a child when you send that child to prison for 10 years, you have reduced their access to education as well, and you've let them be in that place for a long time. So when they come back into society, make them harder to integrate into society, thereby making them a threat once again to the community. With this, I raise my case.
I'm telling now speaker for that very fine speaker she concluded for the event. We call on the member of government to open up the close and hear
The opening opposition came upon here and stressed on the issue of accessibility. But let's take it to a pragmatic aspect. In this world that we are living in, how many children under the age of 18 are getting involved in drug and substance abuse? Are you saying just because they are under 18 we should just leave them? Are you saying just because they are minors we shouldn't take them to charge? We shouldn't punish them just because they are underage? They also came and stressed on how these are going to be punished in the same way as you punish adults, and this is gonna affect them. We are saying that yes, maybe the punishment might be different, but we are emphasizing on they shouldn't be omitted from punishment just because they are young. Now moving on straight to my extensions. Children today are different from yesterday's children. Let's be honest, at the age of 18 back then, someone could not even know how sexual intercourse was. But because of the things we are exposed to, because of technology, probably someone now knows pornography, we now know different things. So what I'm saying is modern problems require modern solutions. And the way people used to govern issues back then should be different from the way people govern issues now, because the way we are maturing, the things we are being exposed to are different. Moving on, mental functions adapt to maturity at an earlier age due to circumstance. Mental functions adapt to maturity at an earlier age due to circumstance. Okay, let's take a street kid for example. They are forced to be more mentally active. Why? Because of circumstance. Why? Because of the things they're exposed to. You can't tell me that a 10-year-old who's a street kid and a 10-year-old who is put under normal conditions are bound to have the same mental capacity. No, this one is exposed to more violence. He's exposed to more things, meaning his mental capacity is going to be different from the normal child. Moving on, rehabilitation can then be done appropriately to suit the offender.
So I'm saying violence increases psychological maturity.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. What you're exposed to determines how mature you are. It determines your mental activeness. Moving on to my next point. Rehabilitation can be done appropriately to suit the offender's mental capacity. Or a normal 10-year-old kid put under normal conditions, and a normal 10-year-old kid who has been living and thriving on the street. Of course, they can't have the same rehabilitation. Why we go back and stress upon the issue of exposure? They have different mental capacities. So then when they go to rehabilitation, the rehabilitation gives them the specific services that apply to their mental capacity. Age is just a present numerical and doesn't directly coordinate to one's maturity. Let's be honest, you can find an 18-year-old that has the mindset of a minor, and we cannot guarantee that just because they are 18, they are going to act like an adult. Some people take longer to develop. Some people need a long time so that they can actually reach that bar of being an adult. So age should not be considered, rather their mental capacity due to their exposure.
Then that's what that was. Yes, I'm just because there's like no colors that, but just angry like that. I mean, that's too short. That's a crime.
Panel. I think the problem with Gov's words in today's debate is they forget to realize how much a vulnerable demographic children have. There is a reason why there are special laws that guide children in our societies, because of how vulnerable they can get. If something as objective as age that can be easily calculated can be manipulated, how much more something subjective like psychological maturity. So the biggest problem that we're going to have is, even if we say, oh, these people, we think that they are mature or what not at that particular point, the truth of the matter is it is still subjective. We cannot say, oh, we cannot say for sure, or we cannot use it as an actual metric to defend us, to like punish children and whatever. And another big misconception that they had from their side is that, oh, because their children are not legal. Let me speak first now. Because these children are not yet 18, they cannot go to the adult court and all these things, they cannot be tried. That is not what it is. It only means that they are going to be tried with the laws that guide children criminal justice system. So it doesn't mean that there is not going to be justice or anything. There is still justice. So what you are now pushing for is that, oh, we need to start trying children as adults. That is not only problematic, that is going to cause total chaos in our society, because when you do that, it means that you are putting power in the hands of a few, because it means that I can now say, oh, I can now accuse children, I can now accuse children of doing certain things, knowing that they're going to take before, because they're going to be throwing them into the dungeons with the adults and all those kind of things. There's a reason why we go to juvenile court instead of adult court for children, because when you are tried in the adult court, you'll be taken to adult prison and all those kind of things. It doesn't matter the kind of psychological maturity that you think that those children have at that particular moment. They are going to be violated in those prisons by actual adults, and that already is a very problematic thing. And we need to shut down that notion of trying children as adults immediately.
If I commit the same crime as I was, I will be in prison in the same place. But just now, the form of punishment is how long you can stay in prison. Not that you are going to stay in prison.
Maybe you didn't understand the notion. That's people's business. Well, maybe we should continue.
Such a scene. Now, one that comes to this and joke. Look how this program is. Please, welcome the government speaker. Joseph, Michael, what's victory? Check if your partner is in frame, that kind of stuff. Repeat the frame. It's in frame. I'm ready when you are.
Alright, 3, 2, 1. The basic ideology in functioning of is segregating age from mental progression. That is what we are going against. We are trying to provide an ideology whereby we're saying age is just a numerical value which only